Welcome to Forbidden Texts. What you are about to see may shock you. It may surprise you, but will definitely challenge everything you thought you knew. Stick around until the end to discover the forbidden knowledge that they don't want you to have.
You were never meant to live like this. Wake up. Work. Scroll. Consume. Sleep. Repeat. Somewhere deep down, this isn't it. You feel it every time your alarm jolts you into another day you didn't ask for. Every time you paste on a smile while something inside you screams, "This isn't who I am." Welcome to Forbidden Texts, where we explore ancient knowledge and forgotten wisdom. The truth is, you're not broken. The system is. From birth, you're slotted into a structure designed to keep you obedient. Not free, obedient. You're taught what to value, what to chase, what to fear. School doesn't teach you how to think. It teaches you what to think. It doesn't show you truth. It hands you consensus. And when you're too young to question it, it sticks. The job, the mortgage, the constant grind. You're not living. You're performing in a play you never auditioned for. You were programmed to believe you were choosing. But choice without awareness is just manipulation. You were told to chase success, but they never told you what success actually is. They defined it for you: the car, the title, the house, the applause. But deep inside, you feel the void. That numb ache in your chest, that's the price of performing someone else's definition of meaning. And the cruel joke, even when you win the game, you lose because the game was rigged from the start. You were trained to mistake repetition for stability, to confuse comfort with happiness. But that tightness in your soul, that restlessness, it's not a bug in your system. It's a signal. And the moment you start to hear it, that's when the matrix starts to crack. Stay with this. There's a reason your intuition led you here. And by the end of this journey, what you once accepted as reality might never look the same again. You remember the first time it hit you? Like a glitch. A moment where everything froze, and suddenly, nothing made sense. Maybe it was staring at your screen in a soulless job, wondering how your life ended up there. Maybe it was losing someone you thought you couldn't live without. Or maybe it was just the quiet emptiness that crept in during your so-called success. That moment was no accident. It was a crack in the simulation. They call it a crisis. But it's not a breakdown. It's the beginning of a breakthrough. Because before you can escape the matrix, you have to see it. You start to notice how people move like they're asleep. Eyes glazed over. Smiles rehearsed. Talking about the weather while their souls quietly rot. You see the lies in advertising, the emptiness in social media perfection, the scripted nature of small talk. Everyone is trying to impress everyone else, but nobody knows who they really are. And then it hits you, you've been doing it too. You've been playing a character, wearing a mask, staying quiet so you don't make waves. You've edited yourself for approval, filtered your truth for likes, dimmed your light to make others comfortable. But the more you hide, the heavier it gets, until your spirit, your real self, starts to rebel. That rebellion is sacred. It's your soul fighting to be heard. And once it starts, it doesn't stop. You start questioning everything. The 9-to-5 grind. The news. The food you eat. The beliefs you inherited. You start to feel like a stranger in your own life. That discomfort, that alienation, it's a sign. Not that something is wrong with you, but that something is waking up in you. And that's where the journey really begins. Because the moment you stop numbing and start noticing, the Matrix can't hold you the same way. You start seeing the strings, the patterns, the traps. You start recognizing the voice that's not yours, the one that tells you to keep your head down, follow the rules, don't ask questions. And then you start to wonder, if that voice isn't me, then who am I? Keep going. Because you're not just watching this to be entertained. You're here because something inside you knows there's more. Spiritual awakening isn't about incense and yoga poses. It's not about joining a cult or repeating mantras you don't understand. It's not soft. It's not gentle. It's violent in the way it shatters everything you thought was real. It's the moment you look in the mirror and no longer recognize who you were pretending to be. This is the death of illusion. When the old you starts to fall apart, don't panic. That confusion, that chaos, it's sacred. Because awakening doesn't give you answers first. It burns the lies. It strips away everything that was built on false ground, your beliefs, your identities, your attachments. You lose people. You lose titles. You lose the version of yourself that made you small enough to fit into someone else's world. And underneath that rubble, something ancient begins to rise. You start to hear your own thoughts for the first time, raw, unfiltered, and real. Not what your parents believed. Not what your culture demanded. Not what society sold you. Yours. And for the first time, you start to feel what freedom actually tastes like. Not comfort. Not predictability. But truth. And truth is never sterile. It's wild. It doesn't ask for permission. The system fears that. It survives by keeping you distracted, entertained, addicted. Because the moment you wake up, you stop being profitable. You stop buying what they're selling, literally and spiritually. You stop looking for worth in a title, in a partner, in a paycheck. You stop running from silence. And that makes you dangerous. Because a person who's awake doesn't obey out of fear. They move from purpose. And purpose isn't given to you. It's revealed when everything false is taken away. You realize you were never broken. You were just buried. Buried under expectations, under conditioning, under rules you didn't choose. And now that you've started digging out, you can see just how deep the programming ran. The way you apologized for existing. The way you shrank in rooms you should have owned. The way you chased validation from people who couldn't even validate themselves. But you're not chasing anymore. You're remembering. And what's coming next is what they tried to keep you from finding all along. You begin to see with new eyes. Everything you once took for granted starts to unravel. Money, power, status, they no longer seduce you the way they used to. You see how empty the pursuit really is. Not because you're better than it, but because you've tasted something real, and nothing artificial satisfies after that. You stop asking, how can I get more? And start asking, why was I chasing it in the first place? The rules of the game lose their grip. You're no longer hypnotized by the next promotion, the next purchase, the next post. Because you realize you were never after things, you were after feelings. Peace, freedom, connection. And once you find them within, the outside world loses its leverage over you. You stop performing and start living. You begin to move through life with a kind of quiet power. Not loud, not flashy, but rooted, present. You're no longer waiting for life to start after some milestone, some achievement, some someday. You understand the only place life ever existed is here. Now. And presence, that's the real rebellion. Because the system depends on your distraction. It needs you anxious about tomorrow and ashamed of yesterday. It needs you chasing futures you don't want, to pay for things you don't need, to impress people who don't care. But when you land in the now, truly land, you break the loop. You realize time is a trap. Not clock time, but psychological time. The endless mental hamster wheel of past and future that keeps you from seeing the miracle of now. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You start slowing down, breathing deeper, listening more, not to the noise, but to the silence underneath. That silence is sacred. It's where your real self lives. This isn't about escaping the world. It's about seeing it clearly for the first time. And in that clarity, you begin to rewire everything. What you value, who you allow into your space, how you spend your time. You no longer live for optics. You live for alignment. And alignment doesn't come from strategy. It comes from stillness. Stillness isn't passive. It's power, focused, intentional, grounded. And from that stillness, your real life begins to emerge. Not the one they sold you. The one that's been waiting underneath the noise all along. Stay with this. Because where we're going next, that's where everything changes. They told you success was the goal. That happiness lived at the top of some imaginary mountain. After the degree, after the job, after the grind. But once you started climbing, something felt off. You reached one summit only to see another. The celebration was brief. The emptiness lingered. That wasn't success. That was a leash disguised as ambition. And now, you're starting to see the trap, chasing validation from a system that profits off your dissatisfaction. You were taught to measure worth by output, to confuse productivity with purpose. But what if your value was never tied to how much you produce, how hard you hustle, or how many followers you gain? What if true success was the courage to live on your own terms? You start to realize real success doesn't look like burnout. It doesn't feel like anxiety masked with achievement. It doesn't mean killing yourself for a title or pretending to love a lifestyle that's killing your soul. Real success is quiet. It's alignment. It's waking up without dread. It's creating, not competing. You weren't born to grind. You were born to create, to connect, to feel. You begin to drop the metrics that never mattered. The likes, the numbers, the applause. Because none of it ever fed your soul. And the more you let go, the lighter you feel. Suddenly, you're not running anymore. You're not chasing life. You're living it. And when you stop chasing, you start attracting. Opportunities come not from effort, but from energy. The right people start showing up. Not because you hustled, but because you finally showed up as yourself. And when you're no longer bending to fit the mold, the right spaces will form around you. This is the shift from performance to presence, from pressure to peace. You realize you don't need to prove anything. You just need to be. Fully. Unapologetically. And that is the ultimate form of rebellion, being yourself in a world that profits from your self-doubt. This is the part they never teach you. Because if enough people started living like this, free, aware, untethered, the entire structure would collapse. Control only works when you're afraid. And you're not afraid anymore. Because what you're feeling now, that weight lifting, that fire growing, it's not a fantasy. It's your original self resurfacing. And soon, you'll remember what freedom really feels like. You start speaking truths you used to swallow. You say no without guilt. You walk away from what once held power over you, not out of defiance, but out of clarity. You no longer need permission to be real. Authenticity becomes your compass. You stop wearing masks just to make others comfortable. You stop shrinking to fit in rooms that demand your silence. And when you stand in your truth, you realize most people were never in love with you. They were in love with your compliance. But you didn't come here to be liked. You came here to live. And living means losing things that were never really yours. Relationships built on performance begin to fall away. Roles you once played start to dissolve. It feels like destruction, but it's liberation. The fake versions of you can't survive in this frequency. And that's a good thing. Because what's left when the masks fall off is you. The real you. Raw. Unfiltered. Free. You stop asking, who do they want me to be? And start asking, who am I when no one's watching? You realize integrity isn't about being perfect. It's about being whole. Your words match your actions. Your thoughts match your values. You don't just talk about truth, you live it. And in a world built on illusion, that makes you a threat. But it also makes you magnetic. Because there's something about someone who's free that can't be ignored. Not because they're loud, but because they're real. And realness is rare. In a world addicted to appearances, being authentic is revolutionary.
A quick message. This space has become something truly special for many of us. A community of people on a shared journey of spiritual growth, healing, and awakening. Your comments and stories inspire me every day, and it's clear there's so much more we can create together, especially since this path can feel lonely at times. That's why we've created a spiritual space on Patreon, a sanctuary for deeper connection, exclusive content, and meaningful conversations with others from this channel who share your journey. Together, we can build something uplifting, authentic, and spiritually powerful. If this resonates with you and you'd like to be part of something bigger, whatever you're going through, you'll find the link in the description or pinned in the comments. Your membership not only helps support the channel, but also helps grow this beautiful community. Let's create something amazing together.
You begin to walk lighter. Not because life gets easier, but because you're no longer dragging dead weight. You don't need to manage perceptions. You don't need to earn worth. You just exist, boldly, truthfully, simply. And that simplicity is sacred. This is the truth they never wanted you to discover. That peace isn't found in control. It's found in surrender. Surrendering the lies, the roles, the stories that kept you caged. When you finally let go of who you thought you had to be, you become who you were always meant to be. And from that place, something powerful begins to unfold. Something they can't sell, can't tax, can't own. Something that changes everything. You begin to feel the pull, not toward isolation, but toward connection. Not the surface, level networking we were taught to chase, but something deeper, something ancient. You start seeking those who speak the same silent language, who've seen through the same illusions, who carry the same fire. Because awakening isn't meant to happen alone. The deeper you go, the more you realize this path isn't just personal. It's collective. We're not here to escape each other. We're here to remember each other, not as roles or labels, but as reflections, pieces of the same whole. And when you meet someone who's awake, really awake, there's no pretending. No power games. No masks. Just presence. Just truth. Just being. That kind of connection doesn't drain you. It doesn't ask you to perform. It reminds you of who you are. And it shows you who you could become. Community isn't just comfort. It's medicine. Because the system isolated you on purpose. It made you believe awakening was a solo journey. That you had to carry the weight of your own transformation in silence. But that's not how nature works. Trees grow in forests. Stars form constellations. And humans, we evolve through each other. But the difference now is this: you choose who gets access to you. You're not available for anything that pulls you back into the matrix. Not the drama. Not the judgment. Not the energy of people who fear your growth because it mirrors what they're avoiding. You love them, but from a distance. Because you've made a vow to yourself: never shrink again. And when enough people make that vow, the frequency shifts. We start building something new. Not a new system to control, but a new space to awaken. Not a rebellion rooted in rage, but a quiet uprising powered by awareness. This is the revolution they never saw coming. Because it doesn't march, it emanates. It doesn't shout, it radiates. You're not just escaping something. You're returning to something. To truth. To clarity. To each other. And the more you remember that, the less power the illusion has. The matrix runs on division. But when you wake up and link arms with others who've seen through it, something else begins to take form. And that force, that field, that's the world before the forgetting. And it's calling you home. You were never meant to be a cog in their machine. You came here to remember, to unlearn, to wake up from the sleepwalking trance they called a life plan. And now, you see it, with clarity that can't be reversed. You're not escaping reality. You're peeling back the illusion to find it. This isn't about rebellion for rebellion's sake. It's about reclamation. Reclaiming your time. Reclaiming your mind. Reclaiming your soul from a culture that taught you to trade it for approval. You no longer worship the clock, the screen, the paycheck, or the praise. You see them for what they are: tools, not gods. And when you stop giving your power to false idols, you become sovereign. You listen to your body again. You trust your intuition again. You move when it feels right, rest when it's time, speak when it matters. You don't ask for permission. You don't wait for consensus. You lie from the inside out. And suddenly, the world responds differently. Not because it changed, but because your frequency did. You're no longer tuned into fear, into lack, into hustle. You're on a different channel now. One where peace isn't rare, where joy isn't conditional, where truth doesn't need to be defended. It just is. The matrix can't touch you here. You've moved beyond reaction, beyond scarcity, beyond survival. And from this place, you don't just free yourself, you become a signal. A reminder to everyone still trapped that something else is possible. That they're not crazy. That the feeling they've been ignoring is real. And that it's not too late to remember who they are. You don't need to convince them. Just live it. The real revolution doesn't shout. It glows. And your glow is the evidence. Because once you've tasted the truth, once you've walked through the fire and come out clear, you carry something no system can replicate. You become untouchable, not because you escape life, but because you finally enter it, fully awake. And that changes everything. The final illusion was that freedom had to be earned, that you had to grind for it, beg for it, fight for it. But freedom isn't given. It's remembered. It's already within you, buried under years of programming, fear, and false identity. And now that you've stripped it all away, what's left isn't a new version of you. It's the original. The one who existed before the conditioning, before the titles, before the fear. The one who didn't need validation to feel whole. The one who felt connected without explanation. The one who knew deeply that life was sacred and they were a part of it. This is what liberation looks like. Not flashy, Not loud, just real, grounded, unshakable. You wake up each day not needing to be anything other than what you are. No performance, no pretending, just presence, just peace. And from that space, the world bends differently. Not because you control it, but because you no longer resist it. You're no longer chasing outcomes. You're living in alignment. You move with the current, not against it. You speak only when it's true. You give without needing to be seen. And what you attract now isn't chaos or confusion. It's clarity. Relationships that meet you where you are. Work that feels like expression, not obligation. Moments that expand instead of drain. And if the world doesn't understand you anymore, good. You weren't meant to be understood by a system designed to keep you numb. You were meant to disrupt it by waking up, by standing still in your truth, by refusing to shrink. You didn't come here to fit in. You came here to remember. And now you do. You remember who you are. You remember why you came. And most importantly, you remember that you were never trapped. The Matrix only had power because you believed in it. Now that you don't, the game is over. And yet, this is only the beginning. Because awakening isn't a destination. It's a doorway. The moment you step through, everything changes, not because the world suddenly becomes perfect, but because you finally see it clearly. You stop expecting the system to nurture you, to fulfill you, to save you. It was never designed for that. But you were. You were designed to evolve, to expand, to wake up. You realize now, freedom doesn't mean escaping discomfort. It means being so rooted in truth that nothing can own you. Not fear, not failure, not even your past. You carry your story without letting it define you. You walk forward without looking for approval. You speak without softening your edges to fit someone else's comfort zone. Because now you know, you don't need to be small to be safe. You are the safety. You are the anchor. You are the clarity in a chaotic world. And your presence, your fully embodied, fully awake presence, is more disruptive than any protest, more radical than any revolution. The old world will try to call you back. It will try to remind you of who you used to be. It will offer distractions, temptations, ego bait. But you won't bite. Not because you're better, because you're done. Done pretending. Done proving. Done forgetting. You've already crossed the threshold. And now, everything you do carries the frequency of freedom. Your words, your silence, your boundaries, your love. Especially your love. Because now it's not laced with need or fear or attachment. It's clean. It's whole. It's real. This is the power they were afraid you'd find. A power that can't be sold, stamped, or stolen. A power that radiates from within and reminds others of what they've lost. A power that doesn't dominate, but liberates. And when you walk with that kind of power, you don't just escape the Matrix. You dissolve it from the inside out. Now, you move through the world like a quiet storm. Not to destroy, but to awaken. Every step, every choice, every breath becomes a signal. You could be free too. Not through force, but through remembrance. Because freedom isn't taught. It's contagious. And when people feel it in you, raw, unfiltered, undeniable, they begin to question everything they thought was real. You don't need to preach. You don't need to convince. You are the proof. Your life becomes the rebellion. Your peace becomes the protest. Your joy, uncaged and unashamed, becomes the threat they never saw coming. Because this isn't about chaos. It's about clarity. And clarity cuts through illusion like fire through fog. You're no longer afraid of being misunderstood. You understand yourself. You're no longer waiting for the right time. The time is now. And you're no longer hiding. Because what you found within yourself is too valuable to keep buried, too sacred to shrink, too alive to fake. This is the new paradigm, not a society of control, but a reality of consciousness. Not fear-based obedience, but truth-based alignment. Not survival, but sovereignty. And as more people remember, the old world trembles, because it was never built to hold the weight of awakened souls. It collapses under the light. And what rises from the ruins is real. This is the moment where the simulation ends, where the spell breaks, where the loop finally dissolves. You're not just free, you're awake. You're not just awake, you're alive. And now, the real journey begins. There's no going back now. Once you've seen through it, really seen, you can't unsee. The lies don't seduce you. The noise doesn't distract you. The pressure doesn't break you. You've stepped out of the performance. And what you're left with is something most people spend their whole lives avoiding: silence. But in that silence is everything. Not emptiness, but fullness. The kind of fullness that comes when you no longer chase yourself in circles trying to be enough. You already are. And from that knowing comes a different way of living. You're not reacting to life. You're responding to it. Not compulsively. Not anxiously. But consciously. And that's where your power lives. Not in dominance. Not in control. But in presence. In that stillness behind your eyes. In the breath that returns you to center no matter what the world is doing. You stop living life as a war and start living it as a dance. You move in rhythm with something deeper than strategy, deeper than thought, deeper than identity. This is how the Matrix ends. Not with a bang, but with a choice. One choice at a time. To feel instead of flee. To speak instead of shrink. To trust instead of control. And as you live that way, day by day, breath by breath, you become a portal. A reminder. A living invitation to anyone still trapped in the dream that there is another way. That the door has been open the whole time. They just have to be willing to see it. And you're already through. Not perfect. Not finished. But free. And that freedom will keep deepening, unfolding, revealing more of who you are, more than you ever thought possible. The path ahead may not be easy, but it will be yours. No map, no mask, just truth. And in that truth, everything you've ever searched for finally returns home.